Okay, so picking up where I left off, the 1990s, so the dot-com boom saw a shift in industries to a more technology industry, and an increase in employer interest in recruiting on campuses. So this sort of shifted the career services delivery model to one that was more on establishing strong employer and other networks. In the 2000s, this was emphasized even more with the emergence of social media as a way to connect students and employers, as well as students with alumni, faculty, and their families. Today, career services offices operate in a very different and a much more highly pressurized environment. And this has necessitated even a further evolution of paradigms and new ways to deliver service to our constituents. So some of the current factors that are influencing this shift are a rapidly changing economy and workforce needs, where students and alums must be prepared for multiple lifetime career transitions. Students and alums must be lifelong learners, so they must be able to kind of drop in and back out to learn new and emerging skills and technologies. Also, the landscape is changing in institutions. So we're seeing an increasingly diverse and global student body, which brings additional challenges, as I was talking about earlier, in terms of regulations and also connections for students that are looking increasingly to intern and work abroad and not just study abroad. We're seeing, again, an influx of veterans coming back from Afghanistan and Iraqi wars, and a return to the GI Bill, creating needs for those students, and as well as sometimes with veterans and other students increasing focus on disabilities and those barriers. Finally, we'll see a heightened focus on student career outcomes and the return on higher education investment, and career readiness as part of that being a campus-wide responsibility. So in response, career services offices have really begun to employ a more integrated model of creating customized communities and connections that really engage everyone in the entire university, students, alumni, faculty, employers, and families, and creating a very career-focused community where everybody is involved in successful student outcomes. So some emerging trends besides that shift in paradigm that I wanted to focus on. There are many, but two that I thought were important to touch upon today. And that first one, as I mentioned, was building those strategic partnerships on campus. So I guess that's three things that I'll talk about, but basically the shared responsibility for students' career outcomes is really shared by everyone within the university, and that career services professionals are in a unique position to build networks because we do have connections with so many different entities as part of the essential function. So we can really work to build bridges between all of those constituents. And as we know, there can be barriers that are in place. And sometimes we see that even with relationships with employers and with jobs, that a particular department or unit really wants to hold on to those relationships. But we're in a situation where we can help kind of break down those barriers by increasing communications and streamlining some things. So this increases opportunities for all students. So it's not just maybe a job posting board within a specific major department. If we can work with that department to kind of streamline that employer engagement and take some of the work off their shoulders, it does creates more accessibility for other students. And one of the ways that those partnerships are often brokered is through resource streams. So employers, especially in an economy like today, are often bringing resources to the table that can help specific targeted departments. And so career services offices can help kind of in that way. Again, one of the emerging trends I wanted to talk about was really data and outcomes. So more sophisticated data analysis and outcomes assessment is necessary. So I loved this phrase from one of the articles that I read that said data is the new bacon, right? So everybody wants it on everything, but there's increased demand for career outcomes as part of accountability measures. And so accessing and obtaining graduate student career outcomes is increasingly important. But addition to that are additional measures of how constituent utilization of career services affects their own desired career outcomes. How does utilization of career services affect retention and persistence? So there is a host of work, and that work is increasing in research and scholarship on career exploration as part of early career advising and career advising with undecided students, and even parallel planning, which might be for students that are not getting in or being admitted to their school of choice at the first time. How interventions with career exploration can really focus students in and help them be happier with their academic pursuits, as well as reduce time to graduation. So how do we assess that? As well as how our career services office is contributing to the achievement of institutionally established learning outcomes. A lot of those tend to revolve around high impact practices and experiential education and learning, as well as some of the retention issues that I mentioned before. And finally, evolving technology. So new technology and technological advances have really changed so many ways that career services needs to do business, as well as most other student affairs professionals. It's changing the way that we need to engage with students on campus. It's changing the way that recruiters want to engage with students and alums. And create some really unique ways that we can leverage, I think, technology to share the message of employers and connect them with students in some really fresh and exciting ways. As well as constantly our office, says career services offices needing to stay on top of new recruitment and other technologies and educating students on those. So, in future, I think successful career centers will need to take risks and be willing to take risks and be early adopters of emerging technologies in order to give our clients and constituents a competitive advantage in navigating those ever-changing systems. So that is my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to talking to you more about it in class.